Hi, my name is Brenna Pakes, and I'm super excited to be here with Veronica today. She reached out to me a few weeks ago, and we did a little discovery call and found that we have some things in common that I think it'll be really fun to share with you today. My name is Brenna Pakes, and I'm a graduate gemologist, but I'm also known as Jewelry Navigator on Instagram and on a podcast. I have Jewelry Navigator podcast. And the reason I put the two together as far as an aviation theme and a jewelry theme is that I've always loved jewelry. Always since I was a child. And as I grew and decided to go to school, I chose to major in geology because it was the thing that kind of made sense. But what I didn't realize is that it was going to connect me to my later career. So when I graduated, I didn't want to be mucking around in any toxic waste or water waste or anything like that. That would have been fine, but I just knew I always loved gemstones. So I looked into it and found GIA and continued my education and got my GG. Well, within the first year of working, unfortunately, the really nice store that I was working for suddenly went out of business. And I found myself without employment, with a new car and lots of, upstart expenses. So my father was a career aviator. He was a career pilot, and he was flying for one of the commercials and heard through the grapevine that American Airlines was hiring. So I put in my application and I interviewed and I got hired. So my jewelry career kind of went on hold for a few years, and I flew and had a great time, met some wonderful people, including my husband, who's also a flight attendant. And Yeah. So it kind of runs in the family, both married and, my bloodline family. So we still travel quite a bit. But anyway, once we started our family, we're in Virginia, and my family's in Florida, and his is in Ohio. So we didn't have anybody to help with childcare. So it made sense for me to resign. He's more senior, and things just worked out better for his schedules. So I resigned, and shortly within the next couple of years after resigning, I went back into jewelry and worked for small family-owned independent jewelry stores. I've always worked for very small stores and still help out every once in a while at one of the local jewelry stores. So it's neat because it kind of keeps my foot in the door, and I can always hear what's going on with customers and see what the latest trends are, see what they want, see what they like. And that kind of started to evolve into a realization that a lot of people didn't want the same things, the same mass-produced jewelry. They wanted more unique things that reflect who they are and what they're all about. So I started doing some research and was finding these wonderful designers and started writing stories about them. So Jewelry Navigator started as a blog, and then when I realized that a podcast could tell the stories of these jewelers, once I started digging a little bit more, their stories were as fascinating as their jewelry was. So that's when I decided to start Jewelry Navigator, and that's been about a year and a half ago. And so I'm on Apple Podcasts, I'm on Spotify, Podbean, and Google Play Music. And I'm almost to 10,000 downloads, which I'm really thrilled about, I know. And that's where I am today. So I continue to kind of evolve and find ways to help these emerging designers connect with their ideal customers and tell their story.
Well, I'm sure by chatting with you today that you're going to get just a few more downloads because your podcast is absolutely one of my favorites. I've been lucky enough to work in the jewelry industry for over 20 years. And while I'm always looking to connect with other people to celebrate the joy of jewelry, like I like to call it, I stumbled across your podcast because it was this ability to be able to connect people to the stories about the people who are actually making the jewelry or have been working in the industry for a long time. So you've got so many great episodes that I love to be able to listen to. You also have the world's most relaxing voice, which is just such a joy. And it's such a great combination of being education and entertainment at the same time. And then we had this great conversation just a few weeks ago on the phone, just getting to know each other. And what really appealed to me is you are as warm and vibrant and beautiful as you are on the podcast. And so while you're telling these great stories, you're also such a benefit to the community because you're really trying to foster a sense of community too. So you spent a little bit of time telling us about how that you have your GIA and that you've worked in this industry for a long time and you've even had some transitions. But when did your love affair with jewelry really truly begin? So what inspired you? When did it all begin? Tell us a little bit about your background in some of the special pieces that you have.
Okay, let's see. I'll have to say one of the special pieces is my engagement ring, and I should have cleaned it before and I didn't, but I'll hold it up here. I just love my ring, and I love being able to have been educated with the different shapes of diamonds and what to look for. So that was a really beneficial bonus, so you might say, when we started shopping for my engagement ring. So that's truly one of my favorite pieces. But I would say my love affair really started, like I said, as a child. I thought gemstones looked like candy, and candy was one of my favorite things. So why not just gravitate towards something that you have loved since you were a child? And once I got to GIA, having had a background in geology, it was really easy for me to understand what the gemstones were, where they were formed, why they were formed, where they were formed. So it came really easy for me, and it still does. I still get really, really excited when I learn more about the geology of where gemstones are formed and where, the basic geology of the area and the region. So I would say it evolves. My love affair with jewelry has kind of evolved from just wanting to work in it to wanting to share more about it. And I'm so glad that you shared with me what you get from the podcast, because that's exactly what I want. I want it to be a combination. I want it to be welcoming to the general public. I want it to be something where they're not intimidated to go into a store. I want them to feel comfortable reaching out to a designer saying, hey, I really like this, but you think you could set it with this kind of stone? I want them to feel like they have more freedom in customizing and developing relationships with either a store owner or a designer. So that's exactly what I'm going for. And I'm really glad that you were able to put a mirror up to it and reflect it back to me and let me know that that's exactly what I wanted and what's happening. So really my love affair has kind of evolved, and I really am passionate about the designers that I feature. And the more I go, the more I find that I'm kind of circling around a specific circle of designers. I don't want to dilute myself so much where I spread myself too thin and I can't serve the ones that, I really am passionate about. So I'm kind of gauging and scaling. So you might say, I'm in a scaling time at this point right now, but I don't know, does that answer your question?
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you follow you, like I also followed you on Instagram, I think one of the fun things is that you see a wide variety of your appreciation for jewelry in general, which is so amazing because when we're talking about jewelry, jewelry, it has so many different levels that go along with it. It's got adornment. It is committed to memories that people have. It's committed to, being able to set yourself apart from the rest. And, I personally, we work very heavily here at Vintage Beat Modern with designer vintage jewelry, but we're all about inclusiveness. So a lot of it is mixing things that you might have inherited from people that you loved, like your grandmothers and your aunts and things like that. Or maybe there's particular styles that you really like, but that's not to say that we don't have a love affair for the importance of having jewelry in your life in general, because we're always encouraging our customers and our clients and our followers and our community to mix your fine jewelry with your faux jewelry, mix your big jewelry with your small jewelry, mix your new jewelry with your old jewelry. But what's so awesome about today's world and getting to be able to connect and listen to people on the podcast or getting to watch YouTube videos or things like that is these stories that you're telling about the designers, because I'm always trying to get a pulse as well as trying to learn about different designers exactly for that independent movement. So what inspires them, why they're creating things, why they took the leap. You yourself mentioned a little bit earlier about your love affair with gemology and the different gems and where they come from and those types of things. And so I think that's really amazing, because there's such a huge variety of things that are out there, but at the same time, we have this great ability to be able to get a deeper look into some of these really unique designers that are out there that someday would become our vintage, because we're truly in alignment with why these pieces were created. And you brought up something so important, which is not to be intimidated to ask questions. Mm-hmm. Either in the jewelry store, working with the designer. Can you give us some tips and some maybe thoughts that you have maybe on how to get a relationship like that started to make things less intimidating? Because it's really easy when we have a screen in between us and we just type things back and forth, but jewelry is still a very personal thing. The beauty of it is somebody like you and I can get on even a video chat and have a more personal conversation, but either in person or on phone or by video, what are some of your thoughts as we're creating this joy of jewelry movement in general? That how can you have a better relationship with learning about designers that you might want to support or might appeal to your tastes? What kind of information or what kind of tips can you give us for that?
Sure. I think the big thing is not being afraid to ask, just like we were saying. For instance, this little pendant that I'm wearing is by Emily Couvin. She's someone that I've been following and really am a fan of. And she makes these little motif, these star motif that she calls kapow, or they're her little Stella pendants. And they come in different sizes. But I wanted something with Penn State colors. And I said, can you make that in sterling silver with sapphires? And she said, sure. So designers are more than happy to bend over backwards to accommodate what you want, because they want you to be happy. They want you to be able to go out there and wear their jewelry and tell people about it and be excited about it. I'm really excited about this because I can wear this to the Penn State games, and it, coordinates with the colors and it shows team spirit, and it's just pretty. As far as, another good story is one of my recent episodes with Tracy Traynor. She's a jewelry designer and jeweler in Ireland, and she makes beautiful jewelry that looks like it's moving, but it's not. Just the way her sculptural talent is you'll have to go and see, and you may have seen what I've posted so far. But I asked her, do you ever do custom things if somebody wants, one of their favorite animals portrayed? And she's just more than welcomes custom designs. So they are truly thrilled to do anything that someone wants. And there's usually not any kind of stipulation unless there are some stones when it comes to rings that you have to be careful about, and that's where the education comes in. Like if a stone is softer than, some stones are just softer than others and wouldn't be as good of a ring for an everyday or frequent wear type of ring. So as long as the education is instilled into the whole process, then I think, that goes along with having the consumer's best interests in mind. So,
what do you want people to know about not being intimidated about making an investment in either vintage pieces, contemporary pieces, or even investing in having a custom made piece made?
Let's see. I think women more than men understand the value of jewelry. They understand the time it takes, and they appreciate it a lot more. They also understand the materials that go into it. You and I know the price of gold has gone up astronomically in the past few months. That's going to affect the manufacturing process and also the end cost. And when you're talking about these kind of designers, a lot of their pieces are one-of-kind pieces. They're made specifically for that person. So there's not another one like it in the world. So that's where that kind of specialty comes in. So to educate people once again so that they understand the materials that are going into the piece, the end piece, the process, the time it takes for them to customize it, that's all really valuable. And you're packaging up the meaning of an event, or how much you love someone, or if you're purchasing it for yourself. It's really exciting to buy something that is just made for you because you did something really fantastic and you're celebrating it. So if it's valuable to them, then they need to come up with a budget that they're comfortable with. That's probably the first thing to do. And understand they may go over it a little bit, and understand the reason why those things are important as far as what goes into designing the piece. But not to be scared to once again ask questions. Maybe there's a different metal that would be more budget friendly, like sterling silver is less costly than gold, so maybe they could make it in that. There are different gemstones that are less costly, like right now, and we see a lot of moissanite being used instead of diamonds. It's a really budget-friendly, great alternative if you can't afford a diamond right away. So those kind of things all go in together to make it easier for someone to invest in a really important piece of jewelry.
And I think that that's such a great thing to focus on. One thing that I know that I love to educate customers on is it's okay to window shop, even when it comes to like working with designer, vintage, antique jewelry, those types of things, that if you are going to be making an investment and a commitment to something, that it is okay to window shop. I think a lot of people get intimidated that as soon as they open up the conversation, that's going to directly lead to them having to purchase something or having to make a sale right away. And so that's the reason why I like when you can be more inclusive and, you can listen into conversations like this that revolve around community and helping people feel good about celebrating their personal style, their jewelry boxes, but also celebrating like what you might have just mentioned, which was maybe a significant event or something that they had been working for a long time and things like that. And that all really does signify how that there needs to be more of an experience related to some of these things. And so an experience normally isn't something that is just instant gratification, unless you are really made it to be more a part of your life, in which case maybe that it's something you want to regularly splurge on. If Mr. Vintage Meet Modern is around, it'd be okay to maybe drop that hint to him. But that also opens up another really interesting conversation is, what kind of information do we wish more designers, more curators, more jewelry, I guess you could say like boutiques and shops and things like that, what kind of messaging do we want them giving us more of as some active people that want to buy jewelry versus just having a group of things on display?
I feel like, kind of circling back to what we were just talking about, I feel like letting the consumers know that there are alternatives, whether it's whatever they're showcasing. If it's a sterling silver line, hey, I do this in platinum and gold too, if you want something a little bit more luxurious. Or if it's a high-end piece, hey, I can do this in sterling silver, or we can talk about something else. So letting them know that they're flexible with their collections, or that they're willing to modify a collection or an item just for the customer. So, and also starting conversations with customers and finding ways you can meet them other than in jewelry stores. And this takes a little bit of work, whether it's a trunk show or, reaching out into the community for an event, an educational event, and not necessarily with the end means being, a purchase. The more you can educate people, the more their guard goes down and they trust you. So building that trust factor is really important. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it does, because even with having a curated collection here ourselves, we focus on obviously having a community of people that follow us because we've got a collection that they already want, but we highly focus on educating people on how to wear it so that they feel confident and that they enjoy it and they feel that it works with their modern lifestyle. And I think sometimes I feel like there's a little bit of a gap between what we're seeing now, and then also since Instagram and social media and marketing in general is so image heavy, which is wonderful because for very visual people like me, and like I said, I love your Instagram. Whenever you post, like you posted that picture of that big gigantic emerald ring, and I mean, you could have had any caption on it in the world, and the first thing that went to me was that giant emerald ring. But we do live in a society that is very image driven, and it's very heavy with connecting to things visually. But sometimes those great stories that you tell, like through your podcast and through your own expertise and your own knowledge, get lost unless we listen up to what you're actually hearing, which is why I really do love that you said it might be participating in an event in the community, or it might be partnering with somebody else to show somebody the way that things are special. I think that adds a ton of value to any experience, whether you're talking about more moderately priced pieces versus those gigantic investment pieces that are custom or maybe have like rare materials that make it up, or like you were mentioning with gold going up, those types of things, because value is all over the map. I mean, it's hard to put actually a price on value, because what a customer wants, it really is more a question of what they want at the moment. Something that I also really love about following you, listening into your designer conversations, you just even mentioned like, there might be other alternatives, there might be sterling silver, those might be other types of things, is that, one of the things that caught my eye right away was that you had featured the jewelry from Crash Jewelry. Which is, of course, something that's really near and dear to my house, because my dad restored old Jaguars when he was younger. He sold his first Jaguar to pay for my mother's engagement ring. So, it's kind of fun because it caught my eye, because that was something that I was raised around, which was Jaguars and Ferraris, not necessarily my own and stuff, but like an appreciation for when we would go places where there would be historic cars. And I went and I looked at some of the relationship and some of the information that you have with Crash Jewelry, and it's really reasonably priced. Yes. It's really cool stuff. Here we are having this very nice conversation, and yes, I have seen you feature some pretty drool-worthy diamonds and rings and things like that, but value and memories and cool pieces and things like that also don't have to cost a fortune.
Right.
So talk to us a little bit about like how you find designers like that, like ones that are just really neat, easily accessible, not quote life commitment in terms of mortgage payments or large plannings and things like that. Because some of those designers that you feature on your podcast, like they're people that we should know about because they're just fun.
Yes. Well, first of all, Crash Jewelry, I'm wearing 2 of her bracelets today. This is made from a Tesla, and this is made from a BMW. And what I really like about her jewelry is that it has a big splash of color, but you're not paying for a lot of stone or a lot of, precious metal. This is a great example of one of those really cost budget friendly lines of jewelry, even though they're made from luxury pieces from really expensive cars. And if you want to hear more about that story, you'll have to have your listeners, your watchers go to that episode and keep an eye on my Instagram feed, because I have an event coming up with her at the end of October. But anyway, as far as finding them, it's sometimes tricky. There's a lot of noise out there, and it's so like you said, Instagram is inundated with all kinds of images. And well, come see my Instagram feed, because I'm constantly posting new people who I feel I resonate or connect with their story, or I feel their stories will connect with my audience. And I'm finding that I've kind of gravitated in a direction of not necessarily luxury and couture jewelry, because I feel like that's out of reach for the general population. I want jewelry to be accessible to most everybody, whether it's, a $150 cuff or, a $1,500 cuff with gemstones. I want to be able to offer an assortment of jewelry. So where I find them, I just get lucky. I fall down a lot of rabbit holes.
Oh, well, don't worry. We're the queens of falling down rabbit holes here. And a good day is obviously in our world when we come home with like an entire tub of vintage jewelry. And yesterday I actually drove all the way out to the country, and it poured rain here. And I met with an antique dealer friend, and he literally just put this gigantic bucket of jewelry on the counter. And I was like, would you like me to just stay and sort all the earrings? Like I would do that. I'll just stay and I'll just sort. I'll just find all the matches. Like that would be relaxing to me. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I think is great. And I think that it's also important for people to know, and paying you a true compliment, is that you attract obviously designers that have got a lot of great quality to not just their work, but quality to their story as well. I loved listening to a couple of episodes you had on a pearl designer who also worked with some wire work and things like that. That appealed to listening to me, because I think that jewelry can also be very artistic. So I love being able to talk about, like I said, all these different areas of jewelry, where there's the prestige, there's the adornment, there's the artistic avenue of it, but we're all kind of in it for the same, is the feeling that we get being immersed in it. Right. And that is something that even if you have curiosity and education like you, it's kind of just in you. So I'm excited for my readers, my followers, my listeners, our audiences to connect, because it can really keep the conversation going about all of these different pieces that intersect together. And also what I find though is that people in general, when they like to have these conversations, they love to be able to talk about how that they have a memory or they have something special connected to it. And so you told me a really great story when we chatted on the phone a couple weeks ago about your dad. And I was wondering if you would be happy to share that with us.
Sure. Let me think. Kind of refresh my memory.
Yes, you chatted with me about Penn State and the colors, and how your dad had actually, we talked a lot about how that stepping stones of how you work hard your whole entire life to achieve your dreams. And you had told me a great story about how that your dad actually sacrificed quite a lot for every person who is listening to this, if you're listening in the US, to fulfill one of his dreams.
Okay, thank you for, I know the story, and this has been a few weeks ago. I think it was the first Penn State game. So let me backtrack a little bit. Veronica knows this about me. We have two children. Our oldest daughter is in her senior year at Penn State. And we were going to the Penn State game, and I was talking about some of the jewelry, including this little piece by Emily Cooven and a couple other pieces by Crash Jewelry to show my team spirit. But I shared a little bit more in depth about that whole connection. And my father grew up in the Pittsburgh area of Pennsylvania in a family that didn't have enough money to send him to school. So he chose to go into the Navy and get into officer candidate school and become a pilot. Well, he did that for a few years, enough to save up enough money. And his dream was always to go back to Pennsylvania and go to Penn State. That's all he wanted. I mean, he grew up, Nittany Lions, everything. So I was just an infant when this happened. My parents were married, and he went back to Penn State, finished his degree, and they did that. But anyway, it was pretty cool. He served in the Navy even after that. He served in Vietnam, and after he was finished with his career, he went on and became a commercial airline pilot. So he was a lifetime aviator, but he was still so proud of Penn State. And even as a child, like a little toddler, my first tricycle was navy blue with Nittany Lion decals. I mean, I thought that was so cool. And the only thing I could remember from the fight song was Roar Lions Roar, which was so fun. But those kind of things tie into jewelry, and this little pendant and the Crash jewelry, color coordinate things, it all ties it all together. So unfortunately, my father passed a few years before our daughter found out that she was accepted into Penn State, but he would have been just over the moon. So it's really cool how jewelry can tie in stories with your family legacy, and you can pass those stories on to your children, or, can continue the stories with people who get excited about jewelry.
Well, and that's why I really wanted you to tell that story, because you tell it so casually, but it's so impactful and so powerful. Actually, it is what really lights me up when I get to connect with other people to talk about their experience of whether they're working in it or they're buying it or they're using it as a form of expression. I personally always admire somebody who has what I call like a marker or an anchor piece or something like that. What had originally caught me with the post with that, when you said, you were wearing your Penn State colors, and, to me, that just shows like, oh, awesome, supporting your daughter, she's going to school, all this other stuff and everything. But then you realize that, like, this is part of your life since you grew up and you were an infant, and that you had a father who had even worked hard and sacrificed everything and fought for our country and everything else like that to fulfill a dream. So it just goes to show how that little tiny things that other people might not know that you're walking around wearing can really hold like really symbolic, sentimental value to you every day. And I love that there are so many designers and people out there, even groups, collectors, things like that, that can get together, that can share those types of things, because those are the types of priceless stories that really do connect us to having an entire box of vintage jewelry or passing something on to the next generation. And, I really, truly love that. And so that was something that I felt was really important to talk to with both of our audiences, because we've talked a little bit about investments, we've talked a little bit about adornment, we've talked a little bit about, jewelry designers that use different materials, everything from a Tesla and a BMW to a sapphire. But what are things that you want people to know about in terms of feeling good about passing things on? I think that jewelry has this incredible ability to be able to connect us. And so one thing that I'd love for you to talk to us a little bit about is maybe about like the types of things that you think that you should include when telling other people, like your children specifically, about what pieces mean to you and things like that. So that memories and stories like you just told me can be passed on to future generations, regardless of, I mean, I'll teach them how to wear it. That's my job. I'll teach you how to wear it if you inherit something from 50 years ago or something like that. But what do we want people to know about things that they either wear sentimentally or things that we invest in now that will be passed down for generations?
Okay. First thing I want to say is don't be afraid to wear it. You need to wear it. But you also need to understand a little bit about the construction and the materials that are composed or what makes that piece up. And you know a lot because you combine a lot of different aspects of jewelry, whether it's made from precious materials or whether it's costume. And the really cool thing about older costume jewelry is that it's really well made. The gold plating is more efficient and it's heavier than the modern gold plating. But the biggest thing is not to be afraid to wear it. Find out as much as you can about it. If it's something that's been passed down, like I have something to share with you. I've got to show you. So this is, I'm going to close. There we go. This is a pendant that my godmother gave me and her godmother gave to her. So she gave this to me a few years ago on my birthday, and I was just so floored. But it's not gold. It's gold-plated brass. So that means that the gold will eventually wear off of it, but it's okay. It's okay. You just need to know, like, I know that I can't wear this every day, or it will wear off. But being a pendant, it doesn't get the kind of wear that a ring would get. So it's not, you don't have to be as gentle with it. So that's what I mean when I talk about knowing a little bit more about the materials and what it's made from, so that you can at least take care when you're wearing it. As far as stories, I'll tell you a quick story about my engagement ring, because one of my daughters loves it and the other one doesn't. And I say to them, okay, well then you don't get this when I'm finished with it. So I knew both components. I knew what the ring looked like, and I knew that it was a pear-shaped diamond. I didn't know what it looked like all put all together. And one of our first dates, mine and my husband, was to Monticello in Virginia, in Charlottesville. And he took me back there the day he proposed to me, and I didn't know anything about it. And this was before cell phones. So we walked around. It was a really pretty spring day. And if you've ever been to Monticello, there's like a terrace, where a garden terrace, with a gazebo, really pretty. So we went into the gazebo and we were just hanging out. All of a sudden he gets this ring box out and he gets down on one knee and he proposes to me, which was so exciting. But the really cool part was that I didn't know, neither one of us knew, there was someone there who knew what was happening. He took pictures. Oh, yes. He took pictures. And like I said, this is before cell phones. He's kind of an amateur photographer. And after, all of our excitement died down, he came up to us and he said, I don't want you to think I'm weird or I was spying on you. But when I realized what was happening, I took pictures. Oh, Veronica, they were beautiful. And we had one blown up. It was huge. And we had that at our wedding, and we have it hanging up in our family room now. So this is what started that whole story. And I'll forever remember that. And so that's what I mean by those kind of stories. If you can find out or share something that you're going to pass down with someone, like this was my mom's, and it was really important to her because this is when she bought it, or when, granddad gave it to her, those kind of things.
We get a lot of that here at Vintage Meet Modern, so I completely understand that, and we talk a lot about that. Something that's fun here behind the scenes, and is that people do get stories that get passed down to them, but then the piece doesn't get passed down to them. But we might have somebody send us a conversation or make a comment or join our community and tell us, well, I found you because I bought this brooch because it was just like the one that my grandmother always wore on her coat, or my mom wore a double strand of Aurora Borealis on her wedding wedding day, and I wanted to have something like that. And so I think that it's so important to be able to fulfill those kinds of memories and to be able to renew them on a regular basis. That's an amazing story about how you were basically photobombed with a professional photographer there who then took these incredible pictures, and then the significance of knowing that it's like it started with that, as if the ring itself, with all the symbolism that goes along with rings and everything that we talk about, like that moment will always be forever with you. So that's also just absolutely incredible.
Yes, it was.
So we're getting now to the time where I get to ask you some fun questions that I really want to get to know your personal style better now. You did an amazing job of telling us all about how that, you know, you loved gemstones your whole life and your children your whole life, you know, and things related to your children. And you told us all about your transition from gemology and GIA and then getting to work as a flight attendant and your husband and things like that. But you used a great word. You said it has evolved as to getting along the lines here to even developing a blog and then turning it into this amazing podcast, which again, we're going to put that in the link and everything so that everybody can go and listen and leave you reviews too. So that will be fantastic. But I really want to know now a little bit about your personal style. So I would love to know, pearls or diamonds?
Neither.
Ooh, okay. Well, we'll come back to that one then. Heels or flats?
I like heels better, but flats are so much more comfortable.
Statement necklace or statement ring?
Ring. I can see it.
Shoes or handbags?
Purses. The handbags.
Handbags?
Yes.
Colors or neutrals?
Colors.
And morning bird or night owl?
Morning bird.
Okay. So now tell us, you gave us this great clue into your personal style. I asked you diamonds or pearls, and you said neither. So tell me, in terms of what kind of jewelry you are personally wearing and loving, and that you can't, like, just sucks you in like a tractor beam every time. What are you coveting right now?
I really appreciate and love colored gemstones, and colored gemstones that you don't see every day, like the different kinds of garnets besides the red ones, like the greens and like savarite, even the demantoid garnets that are coming out of East Africa that have some blue in them are just unbelievable. Mary.
Yeah, I saw you post something on your Instagram. Everybody, you really do need to listen to the podcast, but when you're looking for eye candy and you want to have like a good vibe, you really do need to go through your Instagram, because you did just post some really incredible blue pieces.
Yes. So, let's see, what else? Really anything that has bright color. I probably gravitate more towards the cool colors like greens, blues, tanzanite is amazing. And once again, it's that candy. It's, it's that delicious factor that I can't get away from.
So are you seeing anything right now that's trending, at least in terms of things that are going to become timeless? There are certain things that will always be timeless. Solitaire will always be timeless. Emeralds will always be timeless. I know from recently you also did some behind the scenes because you were at the Javits Center for the big show there and early. And so, there's obviously, but you also do interview a lot of newer designers or people who are really beginning to make a larger impact, I guess you could say, in the fashion and style contribution to the jewelry world. So are you loving any specific, I hate using the word trends, so I'm trying not to actually use that word, but are you seeing anything that is trending right now that you believe is going to become more of a classic style that is fitting women's contemporary lifestyle, but is definitely going to be something that is going to be passed on in the future, and that it is definitely leaving a mark in the jewelry design community?
Let's see. I continue to see a really organic style. That keeps on. There's an undercurrent of that whole, like I said, like you said, trend is not a good word, but there's still an undercurrent of an organic feel to a lot of jewelry. And I think that's going to stick around because I just feel like a lot of us can relate to it. And it's very wearer friendly. Like you can pick it up and put it on and go out for the day, or you can go out in the evening and it looks just as nice as it does, during the daytime. So I think the organic feel is going to stick around. Colored stones are really getting popular. And I think we'll start to see, people wearing a few more of those as they become more aware of them and what they like and that kind of thing. Let's see, what else? Modern. I think the modern contemporary styles, those are not that they're getting more popular. I think they're just kind of coming to the forefront a little bit more because once again, I think they're just more user friendly. It's harder to go out on the town with a really fancy ring with, diamonds all around it. It's more conspicuous and it's just not as comfortable to wear. So I think that's another factor, things that are comfortable to wear. That's definitely a rising consideration when people think about jewelry.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're always talking about wearability here. I mean, even for the big pieces or even for the big statement pieces and things like that, we're still always talking about the importance of being able to wear it, which I think is a really great time to bring going full circle and coming back is that you said something really important earlier, which we really do. It's a great way to kind of wind down here and also to continue the conversation either over on Instagram or in our communities is you said, wear it. You are my girl for saying that. So please tell people, because it occurs to you and I that if you have it, to wear it, but what does that really mean to you? And what do you really want people to know by that statement?
When you're getting dressed in the morning, think about what's going to make you feel even better. Think about what's going to pull your outfit together and make you walk just a little bit taller and just make you feel good about it. Whether it's because you're so happy for the designer who made it and you purchased a piece from them, or it's a color that ties in an outfit, or it's something really cool. If it's going to be something that you're proud to wear, wear it. If it's your grandmother's brooch, go to Veronica and get some tutorials on how to wear it, because a lot of people don't know how to wear those kind of things that aren't necessarily in the mainstream anymore, but they could come back, and they certainly are. And this is the season to do it for sure, with sweaters and wraps and scarves. They look great. Or find an alternative, figure out how to wear it as a pendant. So yeah. So definitely wear it. And just a quick note about when you said people not wanting people to be intimidated going into a designer. I want to talk just a quick minute about going into stores, jewelry stores. I think it's really cool and fun to think of ways to repair or refurbish jewelry so that you can enjoy it. So, your grandmother's pin that just needs to be adjusted, go take it to the jeweler. You don't have to buy a new piece, but if you go into a jeweler and they try to sell you something new instead of encouraging you to repair it, then that's not the place for you. They need to have your best interest in mind. Abandoned earrings, I call them orphaned earrings. Okay. Go take them to the jeweler, have them reset as a pendant or as a charm for a charm bracelet. There again, this comes back to wear your jewelry. Figure out how, fix it, wear it, get it on you, gift it. If you're not wearing it, gift it to someone else.
Oh yes, well you'll have to hop over to our blog, because we actually have several blog posts and or video series on how to gift vintage. So Don't be intimidated about passing things down to other family members. Don't be intimidated about picking pieces that are, we like to say, twice loved, but hey, twice loved is just double the love. So it's not, it's, you know, we don't want people to feel wrapped up in that myth. You know, my love affair is obviously being attracted to the colors and the designs and things like that that we work with here at Vintage Meet Modern, but there is that sustainability factor too. I love what you just said about wearing it. I always finish my shows when I work with my community to say, take time to celebrate your inner sparkle so that you let your personal style shine. Because that's so important to me, because I want women to look and feel their best every day. And it can be that one little thing, that tiny little brooch that, you know, nobody's talked to you all day long, or that tiny little pendant where somebody says to you like, oh, I like your pendant. And, you know, you've got that whole big picture that's going on and everything else. And then somebody takes time to notice that little detail that really makes you special. And you can't help but when somebody does pay you a compliment, even when you're an introvert, it feels good. It feels good. And, you know, the world needs more of that feeling good about yourself so that you can give off that energy to other places, which is so awesome that you talk about gemstones, because gemstones have got all kinds of amazing energy. We could have an entire separate conversation about the energy that goes into so many of these different stones and things like that. And so it's great. I love that you brought up repurposing things, and then also not being afraid to speak up to a jeweler that maybe that's just not the right jeweler. And I think that that's great too, because certain things might be outside of their area of expertise. You know, my fine jeweler does not always work with costume pieces that we have, but they have also taken the time to explain to me or explain to my clients why they don't do it. You know, they don't take heat to certain kinds of stones, or they don't have somebody on staff that can do that. But that doesn't mean that you can't find somebody to restring your fine pearls or restring your faux pearls as well, or to reimagine pieces. Do we see any great style icons out there right now who are really influencing women on how they're wearing jewelry, in your opinion?
This is going to sound really bad, but I don't really pay attention.
No, that's totally okay. The only reason why I asked is because I do keep up on what's, quote, going on in terms of trends and everything, but you mentioned orphan earrings, and thankfully to some celebrities right now, single earrings are trending. So it's okay to even wear single earrings or things. The importance is to be able to just go ahead and wear it.
Right.
And there's all kinds of ways to be able to do that. And I would encourage people, whether you follow me or you follow other people and stuff like that, there's a lot of people that if you're intimidated about how to wear it or how to incorporate things, and they don't have to just be vintage too, that there's lots of really great style tutorials out there. There's lots of other great communities that either use real women as examples of how to wear things, or how to feel good about wearing them and reimagining them, sometimes without even taking them to the jeweler to have something changed.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I know.
That was a good point about repairing vintage jewelry, because some people may not understand there are some precautions that a jeweler has to take, because if they do take a torch to something, it will ruin the backing of a stone, or it'll melt something. So you don't want a jeweler necessarily fixing something if they know their limitations.
Right, but you shouldn't also be insulted if your jeweler says, no, I won't touch this. And that's something that I love to be able to talk to people about as well. But likewise, jewelers are great resources with lots of different things. They have their own community as well. And so more times than not, if you do have a good relationship, and if that jeweler is doing a really good job of being part of their community, whether it's a small one or a large one, they can usually refer you pretty easily to somebody who could help you. You know, there are entire societies / groups all over. And some people get really excited over repairing fine jewelry, and some people do get very excited over repairing faux jewelry. Some people really love the challenge. But I think that also going along with designers, there are designers that really enjoy the challenge of creating custom pieces. You know, to them, it's not a challenge, it's their joy.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
fun.
It has been so much fun. You are just a wealth of knowledge and information. And I do encourage everyone who listens to this to share this to somebody else, because it is true. I really don't know anybody who doesn't have a piece of jewelry, whether they wear it every day, like their engagement ring, or something that's even sitting up in their jewelry box. There's always a sentimental piece out there that does this amazing thing to bond us with this joy of jewelry community together. So I'd love for everyone to share our conversation with somebody who they know might love jewelry to wear it as their statement of style, or for somebody who's just truly a jewelry enthusiast that understands that no look would be complete without adding something that's either sentimental or adornment to their look.
Yeah.
So how do we stay in touch with you?
Oh, sure. You can find me at jewelrynavigator.com, and you can find the podcast on 4 different platforms. Probably the most popular one is Apple Podcasts. I'm on Spotify, Google Play Music, and Podbean. And you can find me on mostly hanging out on Instagram at Jewelry Navigator, same on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn as well. So if anyone wants to jump on either any of those, they have questions or need guidance in finding a special piece, I'm happy to help.
I really appreciate that. And everybody take really serious note about that. There are so many people out there that want to help. And by help, it does not necessarily mean sell you anything. It means either connect with you, help you get some more confidence in some of the decisions that you're making. You know, so often we drill down to these things being little things, but as our conversation was a reflection, so much of it is more about the experience. And that's what lives on with all of us. So I'm very grateful for you taking time out of your busy day to hang out with me. I love listening to your podcast. It is, like I said, as relaxing and entertaining and educational all at the same time. And I can't wait to see what the two of us will cook up together next. I don't know, I'm seeing a vintage modern gift guide or something like that coming out this fall, mixing your Jewelry Navigator picks with your vintage modern picks. I think that there's an endless candy box for both of us to be able to rally a beautiful community and a love of jewelry together. So it has just been an absolute delight, and I look forward to us having another chat real soon. Thanks a lot for joining me.
I love those ideas, Veronica. Thank you so much.
It has been my pleasure. So everyone, this is Veronica Staudt signing off from Vintage Meet Modern. Don't forget to take time to celebrate your inner style so you can truly let your personal style shine every day, because when you look good, you feel good, and when you feel good, you do good, and the world needs more of you in it. So from our house to your home, everyone have an absolutely fantastic day, and I will see you all very soon.